Have you ever witnessed a father place a $10,000 bet that his own daughter would cry when he disowned her at Christmas dinner? I sat there at the Thatcher family Christmas table, watching my father, Brandon Thatcher, slide a check for $10,000 across the mahogany surface toward my brother Marcus. "She'll cry," he said, as if I wasn't even there. "She's always been too emotional. That's why she's just a teacher." What they didn't know was that inside the Christmas gift bag I'd brought, there was something that would change everything. Not just that evening, but the empire my father had spent his entire life building. Hello, I'm Brooklyn Thatcher, 32 years old, and this is the story of the Christmas night I received a disownment letter and handed my family a lesson they'll never forget. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. The Thatcher family was Seattle royalty. At least, that's how my father saw it. Brandon Thatcher, CEO of Thatcher Industries, pulled in $50 million in revenue last year. My brother Marcus, at 35, served as vice president, earning $350,000 annually, plus bonuses that could buy a house. My younger sister Emma had escaped to New York, working at a prestigious law firm. And then there was me, the middle child, the teacher. $48,000 a year at Lincoln High School, teaching art to teenagers who sometimes couldn't afford supplies. I hadn't always been the family disappointment. Once, I'd been the straight A student, the one Brandon bragged about at country club dinners. But when I chose education over business school, something shifted. The praise turned to pity, then to contempt. Thanksgiving had been the latest reminder. "Brooklyn," my father had said, carving the turkey with surgical precision, "when are you going to do something meaningful with your life?" I'd stopped defending myself 3 years ago. That was the night Marcus had laughed, actually laughed, when I mentioned being nominated for Teacher of the Year. Participation trophy, he'd called it. My mother, Patricia, had perfected the art of diplomatic silence, occasionally offering hollow comfort. "Your father just wants what's best for you, dear." But I'd learned something valuable in those 3 years of silence. While they talked, I listened. While they dismissed, I documented. While they assumed I'd always be there to look down upon, I planned. I didn't argue anymore. I just took notes. The contempt wasn't random. It was systematic, calculated, almost ritualistic. 2 weeks before Christmas, Marcus had sent an email to the entire family, copying me last like an afterthought. "Reminder for the gala, maintain family standards. Brooklyn, please dress appropriately this year." Attached was a link to Ann Taylor, with a note: "They have sales." I wasn't invited to the quarterly family business meetings, despite owning shares Grandma had left me. "It would be over your head, sweetheart," Brandon explained, as if derivatives and P&L statements were beyond a woman with a master's degree. Even my achievements became ammunition. When the Seattle Times ran a small piece about my innovative teaching methods, Brandon had forwarded it to his golf buddies with the subject line, "My daughter made the paper." The body of the email, which Marcus had gleefully shown me, read, "Page 6, below the fold. At least she's trying." My mother's version of support came wrapped in comparison. "You should shadow Marcus for a day, see how the real world works." As if teaching 150 students, managing a $2,000 supply budget, and working 60-hour weeks wasn't real. The question everyone asked, relatives, friends, even my therapist, was always the same: why do you still go to family events? The answer was simple, though I never said it aloud. They needed me there. Without me, who would Marcus compare himself to? Without me, how would Brandon illustrate his business acumen to his peers? I was essential to their narrative, the cautionary tale, the baseline for success. They needed me to be their failure, and for 3 years, I'd let them think I was. 10 years. That's how long I'd been the failed Thatcher, the family's charitable project, the one they discussed in hushed tones at reunions. The poison had started seeping into my professional life. During parent-teacher conferences, I'd catch myself apologizing for taking up time. When Principal Rodriguez suggested I apply for department head, I'd declined, citing lack of leadership experience. The truth? I'd internalized my family's version of me. My students noticed. Miss Thatcher, why do you always say maybe when you mean yes? Jasmine, one of my brightest seniors, had asked. You're the best teacher here, but you act like you're bothering everyone. She was right. The girl who'd once presented her thesis to a panel of professors now struggled to speak up in staff meetings. The woman who'd graduated summa cum laude now prefaced every suggestion with, "This might be stupid, but..." The breaking point came during my last performance review. Brooklyn, you're talented, Principal Rodriguez had said, sliding the evaluation across his desk. But you lack confidence. It's affecting your classroom presence. Satisfactory. Not excellent. Not good. Satisfactory. That night, I'd sat in my one-bedroom apartment, staring at that review. My father's voice echoed in my head. See, even your principal knows you're mediocre. Except he'd never seen the review. I was doing his work for him now, tearing myself down before anyone else could. The family toxicity had metastasized, spreading from holiday dinners to every corner of my life. If I stayed silent, I'd lose more than family respect. I'd lose myself entirely. My students deserved better. Hell, I deserved better. The cost of silence had become higher than the price of speaking up. 3 years ago, everything shifted at an education conference downtown. I'd been manning our school's booth, explaining our limited resources to anyone who'd listen, when Dr. Sarah Mitchell approached. As superintendent of Seattle Public Schools, she commanded attention, but she was looking at my hand-drawn curriculum charts. You created this program with a $2,000 budget? She'd picked up my portfolio, flipping through pages of student progress data. Yes, ma'am, we make do with what we have. No, she'd said firmly. You innovate with what you have. There's a difference. She studied my face. Have you ever considered scaling this? Every school in our district could benefit from your approach. I'd laughed, actually laughed. I'm just a teacher, Dr. Mitchell. She'd set down the portfolio and looked me straight in the eye. I've been in education for 30 years, Brooklyn. You're not just anything. You have something special here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She'd handed me her business card. When you're ready to believe in yourself, email me. Seattle needs more educators like you. That night, I'd gone home and started researching. Educational technology, scalable solutions, grant opportunities. For the first time in years, I'd felt a spark of the person I used to be. Ambitious, innovative, capable. I'd hidden it all, of course. Worked on business plans after school, took online coding courses at midnight, built prototypes in my apartment. My family never asked what I did with my evenings anyway. To them, teachers just graded papers and complained about budgets. Dr. Mitchell's email address stayed pinned to my refrigerator. A reminder that someone, somewhere, saw value in what I did. For the first time in a decade, someone had looked at me and seen potential, not disappointment. December 24th, 6 p.m. The Thatcher estate in Bellevue glowed with enough Christmas lights to be seen from space. I arrived precisely on time. Not early enough to seem eager, not late enough to give them ammunition. My dress was conservative but elegant, purchased with my own money, not from Marcus's suggested sale rack. Brooklyn! My mother's greeting was warm but performative. You look... nice. Is that new? Before I could answer, Brandon's voice boomed from the dining room. Everyone, gather round! Marcus has news! We assembled like courtiers before a king. Marcus stood beside our father, practically glowing. Senior Vice President, he announced, tapping his champagne glass. Youngest in company history. That's what real ambition looks like, Brandon said, his eyes finding mine across the room. Some people are born for greatness. Emma caught my eye from across the room, her expression unreadable. She'd been quieter lately, visiting less since taking the New York job. Brooklyn, Marcus said, his voice dripping with false concern. How's teaching? Still fighting for those supply budgets? It's good, I replied evenly. Fulfilling. Fulfilling, Brandon repeated, as if tasting something sour. That's what people say when they can't say successful. The room laughed. Not Emma, I noticed, but everyone else. Dinner was served. Prime rib, which Brandon made a point of mentioning cost more per pound than I made in a day. Not that you'd know about premium cuts, Brooklyn, he'd added, teachers' salaries and all. I cut my meat in silence, counting down the minutes. In my purse, my phone held emails that would change everything, but not yet, not quite yet. The champagne had been flowing for an hour when Brandon stood, tapping his knife against Crystal. Before we exchange gifts, he announced, the family has something for Brooklyn. He produced a cream-colored envelope from his jacket, thick and official-looking. The table fell silent. Even the Christmas music seemed to pause. We've been discussing your future, Brandon continued, his voice carrying that boardroom authority. Your trajectory, and we've come to a decision. Marcus was already grinning, pulling out his phone. This is going to be epic, he muttered, starting to record. Brandon slid the envelope across the table. It stopped perfectly in front of my plate, like a subpoena being served. Go ahead, he said. Read it. My fingers were steady as I opened it. Inside, formal letterhead. Notice of disinheritance and familial separation. We, the undersigned, I read silently, hereby formally acknowledge that Brooklyn Marie Thatcher has failed to uphold the standards and expectations of the Thatcher family legacy. 12 signatures, even cousins I'd barely seen in years. Marcus laughed, actually laughed. $10,000 says she cries in the next 30 seconds. He pulled out his checkbook, making a show of writing it out to our father. She's so predictable. 20 seconds, Brandon corrected, accepting the check. She's always been emotional. I set the letter down, folded it carefully, and placed it beside my plate. 15 seconds, Marcus counted. 14. 13. I reached for my purse, pulling out a wrapped box about the size of a book. Actually, I said, my voice perfectly calm, I have something for you too. The counting stopped. 3 years. That's how long I'd been building EduBridge in secret. After Dr. Mitchell planted that seed, I'd spent every free moment learning, creating, iterating. 200 nights hunched over my laptop after grading papers. Weekends at startup boot camps while my family thought I was probably napping. Summer breaks coding instead of vacationing. The first prototype was embarrassing, a simple app that helped teachers track supply sharing. But 5 schools agreed to test it. The feedback was overwhelming. 98% satisfaction rate. Teachers were saving 3 hours per week on administrative tasks. More time to actually teach, one had written. This is revolutionary. I'd reinvested every penny of my meager savings. No new car, no vacations, no upgrades to my apartment. While Marcus flaunted his Porsche, I drove my 2010 Honda and quietly incorporated EduBridge Technologies, LLC. The second version added curriculum sharing and automated progress tracking. 20 schools joined the beta, then 50. Dr. Mitchell had been watching, she told me later, waiting for me to be ready. Last month, I'd finally been ready. The presentation to the school board had been scheduled during my Thanksgiving break. 7 board members, 3 hours, 1 chance. They'd approved unanimously. $8.5 million over 3 years to implement EduBridge across all 106 Seattle public schools. The contract was in my bag now, along with something else, a USB drive containing everything. 3 years of work they knew nothing about. 3 years of building while they mocked. 3 years of proving them wrong before they even knew there was a test. They'd underestimated the power of someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. I placed the wrapped box in the center of the table, equidistant from Brandon and Marcus. What's this? Brandon's voice carried a note of irritation. The script wasn't going as planned. Christmas gift, I said simply. For the whole family. Marcus snorted. Let me guess. A handmade ornament? Maybe some student artwork? How touching. Open it, I suggested, settling back in my chair. Patricia leaned forward slightly. Emma had put down her phone entirely. Even the cousins on FaceTime seemed to sense a shift in the atmosphere. Brandon picked up the box with theatrical reluctance, shaking it next to his ear. Feels like paper. Probably a heartfelt letter about how much you love us despite everything. He smirked at Marcus. Should we read it aloud for everyone? Please do, I said. Something in my tone made him pause. For the first time all evening, Brandon Thatcher looked uncertain. He tore the paper slowly, revealing a plain white box. Inside, 3 items nestled in tissue paper: a USB drive, a business card, and a folded document. Marcus grabbed the business card first. EduBridge Technologies, he read, then laughed. You started a tutoring company? How adorable! What is it? 5 students in your living room? But Brandon had gone very still. He was staring at the document, the first page of a contract, with the Seattle Public Schools seal clearly visible at the top. What? He looked up at me, then back at the paper. What is this? My other job, I said quietly. The one you never asked about. The room held its breath. Brandon's confusion transformed into opportunity. He grabbed his phone, switching to FaceTime. Everyone needs to see this, he announced, connecting to the family group call. Brooklyn's moment of truth. 8 faces appeared on the tablet Marcus propped against the centerpiece. Aunt Catherine from Portland, Uncle Richard from San Francisco, cousins who'd signed that letter without hesitation. Our family disappointment just handed me some kind of business card, Brandon announced to the screen. Apparently, she has a company now. The laughter echoed through the speakers. Is this like when she sold friendship bracelets in middle school? Cousin Jennifer asked. Marcus had started recording again, live streaming to his Instagram story. Guys, you're watching history. My sister's about to cry over her fake business while we disown her. Merry Christmas. Read the letter, Brooklyn, Brandon commanded, pointing at the disownment document. Out loud, so everyone understands why this is happening. I picked up the letter, scanning the cruel words. Brooklyn Marie Thatcher has failed to contribute meaningfully to the family legacy, has rejected numerous opportunities for advancement, and continues to embarrass the Thatcher name with her lack of ambition. Louder, Marcus said, zooming his camera on my face. The cousins can't hear you. Aunt Sally's voice cut through. Brandon, is this really necessary? Character building, he replied without looking away from me. Continue. Therefore, effective immediately, she is formally removed from all inheritance considerations and family business matters. And there it is, Brandon said triumphantly, the consequence of mediocrity. But I wasn't finished. I set the letter down and pointed at the USB drive still in the box. Now plug that in, I said. Please. Marcus grabbed the USB drive, his showmanship in full force. Everyone watching? This is where she begs for forgiveness. He plugged it into Brandon's laptop, projecting onto the dining room's smart TV. The Instagram live count showed 847 viewers now, Marcus's network of Seattle tech bros and socialites. Probably a PowerPoint about feelings, someone commented. The screen lit up with EduBridge's logo. Professional, polished, nothing like they'd expected. Revolutionizing education through technology, Marcus read mockingly. How original. But then the numbers appeared. 3 years of development, 106 schools contracted, 54,000 students impacted. Contract value, $8.5 million. The room went silent. That's... Brandon squinted at the screen. That's not possible. The next slide showed the Seattle Times headline from December 15th. Local teacher turns classroom innovation into multi-million-dollar edtech solution. Marcus's livestream comments exploded. Wait, is this real? Your sister is a CEO? Bro, she's crushing it. No, Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly. This is some kind of joke. Teachers don't... The presentation continued. Photos of me with Dr. Mitchell, with the school board, shaking hands with the governor at the Washington State Innovation Awards. Brandon stood abruptly, his chair scraping against hardwood. Turn it off. 30 seconds, I said quietly. Remember? You were counting down to my tears. Emma's voice came from across the table, steady and clear. Let it play. The final slide appeared. Forbes, 30 under 30. Education Technology, 2025. Brooklyn Thatcher, founder and CEO, EduBridge Technologies. Marcus's phone slipped from his hand, clattering onto the table. The live stream was still running, comments flooding in faster than anyone could read. Thank you all for witnessing this, I said, standing. Merry Christmas. This is fake, Brandon said, but his voice lacked conviction. You fabricated all of this. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and slid it across the table. Call Dr. Mitchell, her number's right there, ask her yourself. Emma was already on her laptop. Brooklyn Thatcher EduBridge, she typed into Google. The results filled the screen immediately. 47 news articles, a verified LinkedIn profile with 15,000 followers, a TED Talk titled, When Teachers Become Entrepreneurs, with 2.1 million views. Holy shit, Emma whispered. Brooklyn, you gave a TED Talk? The FaceTime relatives were frantically Googling too. Aunt Catherine's voice crackled through. There's a picture of her with Bill Gates at an education summit. Marcus grabbed the laptop, scrolling desperately. No, no, no. This doesn't make sense. You're a teacher. You make nothing. You are nothing. I'm a teacher, I agreed. And I'm proud of that. But I'm also a CEO. And according to our latest valuation, my nothing is worth approximately $50 to $75 million. Brandon's face had gone from red to white. Valuation? We're going public next year. Q3, Goldman Sachs is handling it. I picked up the business card from the table. CEO and founder. It's been on my email signature for 2 years. Not that any of you ever noticed. Marcus's Instagram live was chaos. Someone had tagged TechCrunch. Another person was sharing screenshots of my Forbes profile. His attempt at public humiliation was becoming my public vindication. But the gala, Brandon said suddenly, grasping for control. You're not even invited to... Actually, I smiled. Check your email, the one from the Seattle Business Alliance. I'm the keynote speaker. Have you ever been underestimated by the people who should support you most? Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success they never saw coming. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and comment Silent Power below. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happened at that gala. Because what unfolded in front of 500 of Seattle's elite changed everything. The USB contained more than just slides. With one click, I pulled up the contract itself, all 47 pages of it. Contract number CED 2024-1127, I read from the screen. Executed November 27, 2024. EduBridge Technologies will provide comprehensive educational software solutions to Seattle Public Schools, serving 106 schools and approximately 54,000 students. Brandon snatched the laptop, scrolling through the document with increasing desperation. There it was. Official seals, signatures, witness attestations from the law firm Smith & Associates. Rebecca Smith was my legal counsel, I added, watching his face. You might know her. She handled Thatcher Industries' IPO attempt that failed 3 years ago. That landed. Brandon's failed IPO was family taboo, the one business failure he couldn't spin into a lesson about strategic patience. Emma pulled up the Seattle Times article on her phone. Listen to this, she read aloud. Thatcher, who has been teaching in Seattle public schools for 8 years, developed the initial concept while working with limited resources in her own classroom. What started as a simple supply-sharing app has evolved into a comprehensive platform that rivals solutions from companies 10 times its size. The FaceTime audience was riveted. Uncle Richard, a venture capitalist, spoke first. Brooklyn, have you raised funding? Series A closed in October, $12 million from Bessemer Venture Partners. Marcus laughed, but it sounded hollow. You're lying. Bessemer doesn't invest in teachers, I finished. No, they invest in profitable companies with proven traction, which is what I built while you were posting Instagram stories about your Porsche. Patricia finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. How did we not know? You never asked, I said simply. For 3 years, not one of you asked what I did after school, on weekends, during summers. You assumed I was grading papers and being mediocre. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and it was destroying their narrative in real time. Emma's fingers flew across her keyboard. Brooklyn, your TED Talk has 2 million views. 2 million. She projected it onto the TV. There I was, on that famous red circle, wearing the same dress Brandon had mocked at last year's gala. The title appeared, When Teachers Become Entrepreneurs, the Hidden Innovation in Our Classrooms. Play it, Uncle Richard demanded from the FaceTime call. My recorded voice filled the room. They told me I was wasting my potential by becoming a teacher. What they didn't understand was that teachers are the ultimate entrepreneurs. We create something from nothing every single day. Marcus was scrolling through his phone frantically. Your LinkedIn, 15,000 followers. Microsoft follows you. Amazon follows you. What the hell? There's more, Emma said, her voice rising with excitement. Brooklyn, you were photographed with the governor at the Washington Innovation Summit. You're wearing a speaker badge. She flipped her laptop around. There I was, shaking hands with Governor Chen, both of us laughing at something off camera. The caption read, Governor Chen with EduBridge CEO Brooklyn Thatcher discussing the future of education technology in Washington state. Brandon grabbed the laptop, staring at the image like it might disappear. This was 3 months ago. You were at the summit 3 months ago? I told you I couldn't make Sunday dinner in September. You said I was being dramatic about some teacher thing. The Instagram live comments were screenshotting everything. Someone had started a Twitter thread. Watch this teacher destroy her toxic family with receipts. It already had 500 retweets. Cousin Jennifer's voice crackled through FaceTime. There's a Business Insider article about you. The teacher who built a $50 million ed tech startup in her spare time. Patricia stood up slowly, her hands shaking. All this time, while we were mocking me? I supplied. Yes, Mother, all this time. The gala, Brandon repeated, his CEO composure finally cracking. You said you're speaking at my gala? I pulled up the email on my phone, forwarding it to him. December 27th, Four Seasons Ballroom, Young Innovator Award and Keynote Address, Brooklyn Thatcher, CEO of EduBridge Technologies. His phone pinged. He read it once, twice, 3 times. The selection committee chose me in October, I explained. They contacted me directly through EduBridge's corporate email. They had no idea I was your daughter. I use my middle name professionally. Brooklyn Marie Technologies, LLC. Marcus grabbed his father's phone. This can't be. Dad, she's scheduled right after you. Your speech is about building a legacy of success, and hers is... He went pale. The real meaning of legacy, when public service meets innovation. 500 guests, I continued, including your top 10 investors, the mayor, the entire Seattle Business Alliance, and approximately 30 education reporters who've been following EduBridge's story. Emma was reading from her laptop. The announcement was published 2 weeks ago. The Seattle Business Alliance is proud to honor Brooklyn Marie Thatcher with the Young Innovator Award. Ms. Thatcher represents the best of Seattle's entrepreneurial spirit, proving that innovation can come from unexpected places. You knew, Brandon said slowly. You knew when you walked in here tonight. You knew we were going to do this, and you knew you'd be standing on that stage in 3 days. I suspected, I admitted. Marcus isn't subtle. His email about maintaining family standards at the gala made it clear something was planned. The FaceTime call erupted. relatives talking over each other, Googling frantically, sharing links, but I wasn't done. Oh, and Brandon, I added, 5 of your biggest clients have already RSVP'd specifically to hear my keynote. They're interested in EduBridge's corporate training platform. We're expanding beyond schools. His face went from pale to gray. Sometimes the best response to being underestimated is to quietly exceed every expectation. If you've ever been told you're not enough, remember this: success is the sweetest answer. Type silent power in the comments if you believe in proving them wrong with results, not words. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, because what happened at that gala is about to change everything. December 27th, 7 p.m. The Four Seasons Ballroom glittered with Seattle's elite. Brandon stood at the podium delivering his prepared speech about the Thatcher legacy. Success, he declared, is about making hard choices. Sometimes that means cutting dead weight, even when it's painful. I sat at table 12, wearing a $3,000 dress I'd bought with my own money, from my company's profits, not a teacher's salary. Emma sat beside me, having flown back from New York specifically for this. And now, the MC announced as Brandon returned to his seat, we're honored to present the Young Innovator Award to a truly remarkable individual. Please welcome Brooklyn Marie Thatcher, CEO and founder of EduBridge Technologies. The applause was immediate and thunderous. 500 people rose to their feet before I even reached the stage. Brandon's table, table 1 naturally, remained seated. Thank you, I began, waiting for the applause to die down. 3 years ago, I was told I was wasting my potential by being a teacher, that I was the failure of my successful family. Tonight, I stand here not in spite of being a teacher, but because of it. The screens behind me lit up with photos, my classroom, my students, the first EduBridge prototype sketched on a whiteboard. Teachers are natural entrepreneurs. We take 30 different learning styles, limited resources, and impossible expectations, and we create magic every single day. EduBridge exists because I understood what my students needed, not what boardrooms thought they needed. Marcus was staring at his phone. The live stream from Christmas dinner had been reposted by TechCrunch, Business Insider, and now the Seattle Times. The headline: Seattle teacher exposes family's betrayal, reveals multi-million-dollar success. My father taught me about legacy, I continued, looking directly at Brandon. But legacy isn't about tearing others down to build yourself up. It's about lifting others as you rise. Tonight, I want to share something with you all for the first time, I said, gripping the podium. EduBridge Technologies will be going public in Q3 of 2025. The ballroom erupted. Phones appeared, reporters started typing, and I saw at least 3 venture capitalists immediately stand to make calls. Our preliminary valuation ranges from $50 to $75 million. Goldman Sachs will be leading the IPO. I paused, letting that sink in. But more importantly, we're implementing a profit-sharing program where 10% of our public offering will go directly to teachers who help develop our platform. Behind me, the screens showed our growth projections. The hockey stick curve that every startup dreams of, except ours was real, backed by contracts and revenue. I stand here as proof that being underestimated can be a superpower. While others dismissed me, I had the freedom to build without scrutiny, to fail without mockery, to iterate without interference. I found Brandon's face in the crowd. He was frozen, his champagne glass halfway to his lips. My family taught me something valuable, though not what they intended. They taught me that toxic soil can still grow strong roots, as long as those roots reach toward better ground. They taught me that sometimes the best response to "you'll never amount to anything" is to quietly amount to everything they said you couldn't be. The mayor was on his feet, applauding. The superintendent of schools was wiping her eyes. 5 of Brandon's biggest clients were taking photos of my presentation. To every teacher watching the live stream tonight, yes, I know you're watching because this went viral 3 hours ago, you are not just anything. You are innovators, creators, and change makers. Don't let anyone, not even family, tell you otherwise. Marcus's phone showed the real-time destruction. Hashtag teacher power was trending. The Christmas dinner video had been viewed 2.8 million times. Comments poured in. Queen, this is the energy we need in 2025. BRB, calling my toxic father. Thank you, Seattle, for believing in a teacher with a dream. Together, we're not just building software. We're building a future where every educator is valued at their true worth. The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. Brandon never stood. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Before I'd even left the stage, 3 of Brandon's largest investors had intercepted me. Ms. Thatcher, extraordinary presentation. We need to discuss EduBridge's Series B funding. Robert Chen from Cascade Ventures pulled me aside. We've been Thatcher Industries' lead investor for 5 years. After tonight, we're reconsidering that relationship. He handed me his card. But we're very interested in EdTech. Brandon stood frozen as his carefully cultivated network swarmed around me instead of him. These were his contacts, his relationships, his kingdom, and they were pledging allegiance to the daughter he'd just disowned. Marcus's phone buzzed incessantly. He looked down, his face draining of color. "The Patterson deal," he whispered to Brandon. "They just emailed. They're pulling out." The Patterson Group, a $2 million contract Marcus had spent 6 months securing, had been watching the live stream. Their CEO's daughter was a teacher. Emma appeared at my elbow, her phone extended. "Brooklyn, look at this." The video from Christmas dinner had hit 5 million views. Someone had created a Wikipedia page for EduBridge, citing the Forbes article, the TED Talk, and now the gala reversal, as Twitter was calling it. Hashtag Thatcher Takedown was trending nationally. "Ms. Thatcher," a reporter from King 5 News pushed through the crowd. "Can you comment on your father's reaction to your success?" Before I could answer, another voice cut through. "Brooklyn, Jim Harrison, Microsoft Education Division. We need to talk about integration possibilities." Brandon tried to approach, but the crowd around me was too thick. I caught his eye over someone's shoulder. The man who'd ruled through intimidation and control was now unable to reach his own daughter through a crowd of her admirers. Marcus's Instagram had exploded with comments. "Your sister is a boss. Imagine fumbling this badly. Bro got destroyed by a teacher." His follower count was dropping in real time as people unfollowed to follow me instead. Emma leaned in close. "I'm done with them too," she whispered. "I want in on EduBridge, whatever you need, legal, operations, anything." The reversal was complete. In Brandon's own ballroom, at his signature event, surrounded by his peers, I'd become everything he said I'd never be. By December 28th, the business consequences were measurable and devastating. Thatcher Industries stock had dropped 8% in pre-market trading. The headline on Bloomberg read, "Thatcher Industries faces backlash after CEO's public family scandal." Emma forwarded me an internal email from Thatcher Industries CFO. "Emergency board meeting scheduled. Agenda: CEO conduct and reputational damage assessment. Estimated Q1 losses, $4 million. 2 board members had already submitted resignations, citing concerns about leadership culture and values alignment. One of them, Jennifer Walsh, had called me personally. "Your presentation last night showed more leadership in 20 minutes than I've seen from your father in 5 years." Marcus's LinkedIn was a graveyard. The Patterson Group had made their withdrawal public. "We choose to work with companies that value all contributors to society, especially educators." 3 other clients followed suit within hours. But the real blow came from an unexpected source. Grandma Thatcher's estate lawyer called Brandon that morning. Emma was on the call and texted me the details. "The estate has a morality clause. Any family member who publicly damages the Thatcher reputation through conduct unbecoming loses their management rights. The Christmas video qualifies. Brandon just lost control of the family trust. The trust, worth approximately $30 million, would now be managed by an independent fiduciary until a new family representative could be chosen. The lawyer had already reached out to me as a potential candidate. The Seattle Business Journal ran a brutal analysis. Thatcher Industries' toxic leadership culture exposed what this means for investors. They'd interviewed 5 former employees who confirmed the same bullying behavior internally. Marcus was forced to do damage control, but his prepared statement only made things worse. He'd tried to claim the video was taken out of context, but the full live stream was still available. The internet had receipts. By noon, Hang Teachers Deserve Better was trending globally, with educators sharing their own stories of being undervalued by family and society. The empire Brandon had spent 30 years building was crumbling in 30 hours. The family WhatsApp group exploded on December 29th. Mom broke her silence first. Brandon, what you did was unconscionable. I've been complicit in this cruelty for too long, and I'm ashamed. She'd never criticized him publicly before. Not once in 35 years of marriage. The cousins who'd signed the disownment letter started backpedaling frantically. 8 of them sent private apologies. Each variation of, "We didn't know about your company. We were just supporting Uncle Brandon. Please understand." Aunt Sally was more direct. "I told you this was wrong, Brandon. Publicly humiliating your own daughter? And for what? Your ego? You've destroyed this family." Emma revealed the extent of the damage in a family email that didn't include Brandon or Marcus. Mom's moving to the guest house. She's speaking with a lawyer about separation. Marcus got demoted to director. The board wouldn't let him keep VP after the scandal. Dad's in therapy, but only because the board mandated it for him to remain CEO. The company's hemorrhaging talent. 3 senior executives quit this morning. Uncle Richard, the venture capitalist, sent me a separate message. "I'm ashamed I signed that letter. You've accomplished more than any of us. Would EduBridge consider a strategic investment from my firm?" The irony was perfect. The family that had disowned me for lack of ambition was now scrambling to invest in my ambition. Marcus tried to salvage something, texting me directly. "Brooklyn, this got out of hand. We're family. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. But I did see his LinkedIn update. Exploring new opportunities. Open to edtech roles. The man who'd mocked teachers was now trying to pivot into educational technology. Mom called that evening. For the first time in years, she sounded like my actual mother, not Brandon's wife. "I failed you, Brooklyn. I let him convince me that success only looked one way. Watching you on that stage, seeing what you built while we tore you down. I'm so sorry." The Seattle Times ran a follow-up story on December 30th. From classroom to boardroom, the Brooklyn Thatcher story inspires national conversation. They'd interviewed Dr. Mitchell, who didn't hold back. Brooklyn represents thousands of innovative educators who are dismissed by society. Her success isn't an anomaly. It's what happens when we actually value teachers. 15 more school districts reached out within 48 hours. Chicago Public Schools wanted a pilot program. Los Angeles Unified was interested in a full implementation. New York City's Department of Education requested a presentation. The speaking invitations poured in. Harvard Graduate School of Education, MIT's Entrepreneurship Center, Stanford's Design School. Each offering 5-figure speaking fees, more than I'd made in 6 months as a teacher. Microsoft's education division didn't just want a partnership, they wanted to acquire EduBridge. The initial offer was $125 million. "We've been trying to crack the K-12 market for years," their CEO explained on a call. "You did it in 3. We need your insight, your platform, and honestly, your story." Time magazine called. They were considering me for their Innovation in Education cover story. The photographer would arrive next week, but the validation that mattered most came from my students. 500 thank you letters arrived at my apartment, forwarded from school. One stood out. "Ms. Thatcher, we saw the video. We always knew you were special, but the world needed to see it too. You taught us to stand up for ourselves with dignity. Thank you for showing us how it's done." Jasmine and class of 2024. The Washington State Teacher of the Year Committee reached out. They wanted to create a special award, the Brooklyn Thatcher Innovation in Education Award, to be given annually to teachers who innovate beyond the classroom. My story had become bigger than my family's cruelty. It had become a symbol of every undervalued professional who'd been told they weren't enough. The internet had turned me into an accidental icon. Had Brooklyn Energy became shorthand for succeeding despite toxic people. January 2nd, 2025. Brandon's email arrived at 6 a.m. Brooklyn, we need to talk. I've been in therapy. I understand now how wrong I was. Please, you're still my daughter. I crafted my response carefully, CCing Mom and Emma. Brandon, your acknowledgement is noted. However, actions have consequences, and 30 years of emotional abuse isn't erased by 1 week of mandated therapy. If you genuinely want to repair this relationship, here are my non-negotiable conditions. 1. A public apology. Not a PR statement, but a genuine acknowledgement of the systematic disrespect toward me and teachers everywhere too. 6 months of consistent therapy, with quarterly progress reports from your therapist. 3. A $100,000 donation to the Seattle Teachers Foundation, in my name. 4. No contact with me until these conditions are met. I don't need your money, your connections, or your approval anymore. What I need is evidence of genuine change. You taught me that business is about leverage. Consider this my position. Brooklyn. His response came within an hour. This is excessive. You're being vindictive. I didn't reply, but I did forward his response to Mom with a note. This is why boundaries exist. Emma called that afternoon. He's scrambling. The board gave him an ultimatum. Fix this publicly or step down. He needs your forgiveness for his own survival. That's not my problem anymore, I said. Marcus tried a different approach, showing up at my apartment unannounced. I spoke to him through the doorbell camera. Brooklyn, please. My career is ruined. No one will hire me. They all know what I did. You live-streamed my humiliation to 847 people, I reminded him. You made your choice public. Now you live with the public consequences. We're family, he pleaded. Family doesn't bet money on making each other cry, I said, ending the call. That evening I blocked both their numbers, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. Some bridges once burned should stay ash. Mom understood. You're protecting your peace, she said when we met for coffee. I wish I'd learned that lesson 30 years ago. Not every relationship was lost. Some were transformed. Emma joined EduBridge as Chief Operating Officer on January 10th. She'd quit her New York firm, packed her life, and moved back to Seattle within 2 weeks. I watched you build this while we mocked you, she said during our first official meeting. I want to be part of something meaningful, not just profitable. She brought 3 major clients from her network, companies looking for corporate training platforms. Within a month, she'd expanded our market beyond schools into Fortune 500 employee development. Mom visited the office on January 15th. She stood in our reception area, looking at the wall of thank you letters from students, the framed Forbes article, the photo of me with the governor. This is who you really are, she said quietly. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. She brought lunch for the entire team, 25 people now, with 5 more starting next week. She asked genuine questions about our platform, our mission, our teachers turned developers. I'm filing for separation, she told me privately. Not divorce yet, but I need space to figure out who I am without his voice in my head. Aunt Sally flew up from Portland, bringing a peace offering, Grandma Thatcher's teaching certificate from 1952. She was a teacher before she married into money, Sally explained. Brandon never wanted anyone to know. He thought it was beneath the family image, but she would have been so proud of you. I framed it and hung it in my office, next to my own teaching certificate. Even Marcus attempted reconciliation, though indirectly. He sent a formal letter through his lawyer, apologizing and asking if EduBridge had any positions available. I had HR send him a standard rejection. We appreciate your interest, but you don't meet our minimum requirements for cultural fit. The cousins who'd apologized were invited to the EduBridge launch party with conditions, a personal apology, and a donation to their local teachers' union. 6 showed up. 2 became angel investors. I was rebuilding family on my own terms, chosen, not obligated, respectful, not toxic, supportive, not competitive. By March 2025, EduBridge had exceeded every projection. 200 schools across 6 states, 50 employees, 30% former teachers who understood our mission intimately. Our office occupied the top floor of a building with panoramic views, including a direct sightline to Thatcher Industries 10 blocks away. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. My desk held a different kind of wealth. Thank you letters from students whose grades improved using our platform, emails from teachers saying we'd given them back hours of their lives, photos from schools that could finally track resources effectively. The Microsoft acquisition offer had increased to $150 million, but I wasn't ready to sell. This was bigger than money now. You could retire, Emma pointed out during a strategy meeting. You could buy 10 houses, travel the world, never work again. I could, I agreed, but every teacher who's been told they're just a teacher deserves to see one of us ring the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. The IPO was scheduled for September 2025. Goldman Sachs projected an opening valuation of $200 million. Brandon had met my conditions, barely. His public apology was stiff but acceptable. The therapy reports showed minimal progress. The donation was made. But I maintained my boundaries. He could email once a month, I might respond. Marcus had relocated to Austin, consulting for startups. His Instagram was now private, his LinkedIn scrubbed of all Thatcher Industries references. Mom had found herself again. She volunteered at literacy programs, joined the school board, and started therapy to unpack 35 years of learned toxicity. We had dinner every Sunday, just us, no Brandon allowed. The Thatcher family empire had crumbled, but something better had grown from its ruins. Not the legacy Brandon had envisioned, one built on control and contempt, but one built on respect, innovation, and the radical idea that teachers could change the world. My office phone rang. Another district wanting to implement EduBridge. Brooklyn Thatcher, I answered, CEO of a company worth more than my father ever believed I could be. The girl who was just a teacher had built an empire of her own. And unlike his, mine lifted others as it rose. I didn't prepare to leave. I prepared to lead. This story proves that your worth isn't determined by those who undervalue you. It's determined by the impact you choose to make. If you're building something in silence while others doubt you, remember, success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Like this video if you believe every teacher deserves respect. Subscribe for more stories about quiet strength and powerful comebacks. And comment below, what's the one thing you're building that nobody knows about yet? Your story might be the inspiration someone else needs today.